me kako. Aloha. Aloha me kako. Let's see. I think that might just save us the whole Alauna slide so we can move on. But yeah, mahalo. I'm very honored to be asked to be with you folks, with the PA. I'm very honored to have some kind of association with you folks. Uh, Especially because of the family background with Papa. We call him Papa Kona, Laluahine Kaopua. And yeah, we knew a lot. Well, he died a few years before I was born, but my father knew him very well. And he talked about even into old age, he had these large, strong hands. He felt like he could just crush you with these hands. But they said he knew a lot, man of a lot of knowledge, but he wouldn't speak after. Once the sun went down, he wouldn't talk about certain issues or certain cultural practices. So he did malama a lot of the kapu, and so our family has always revered him and tried to learn from his teachings. Uh, that being said, real quick, so you know that there's going to be an end to this, so you don't think I'm just going to keep rolling on and on day. We're going to try and hit these 4 points today. And real quick, I'm usually called Keiki. My friends call me Keiki. Let's see. I consider myself a student. I love learning, and it's easy for me to get caught into go down rabbit holes because I just love to do that. And I had the opportunity to learn Hawaiian language when I was in high school many years ago, before it was considered cool, actually. At that time, which would have been about 81, 80, there was a Hawaiian language class at my high school in Kailua, but again, it wasn't cool, and I kind of had to go against even Ohana, who thought that that was foolish. And at the time, they were right. They said, there are no jobs for that. Why are you doing that? And the Punana Leo hadn't started yet, right? But let alone immersion or anything else. So, but the kupuna, I felt it. I had to learn this. And so now I'm still learning the language, but to me, the language is a key. And as our Maori friends, they have a saying, waka huia te reo. The language is a treasure chest, right? And it's really, for me, it's the key to open the treasure chest. To fully understand, you kind of have to understand. So, yeah, I consider myself a student. I'm still learning. I love just trying to amass knowledge about different things. Hei no kamoana, he aho loa hui ke ko'a. So as a student, as you folks know, there's preparation, right? The better prepared you are as a student, the more you'll be able to learn when you have that opportunity to learn, right? And to me, that's the big fish of the ocean, that trying to gain that knowledge, or you go after it. Basically, it's saying if you're going after the fish in the ocean, you need to have a long fishing line, so long that it touches the bottom of the ocean. Kuikikoa. Yes, in other words, you got time, you should be preparing when you have time. And so yeah, as a haumana, you're always preparing for that opportunity to learn. And why Konane? All right, so a few years ago, I was watching a History Channel thing about Vietnam, and I believe it was Westmoreland was about ready to sign. The United States was ready to retreat, and or to evacuate. And right before he signs, he looks at the North Vietnamese general and he says, "We kicked your asses." And the general said, "Yes, but you still lost." And they went home scratching their heads. What happened here? Okay. And that kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you remember, this is one of my favorite movies. Never get involved in the lab, right? And that's why this is so funny, right? Because we actually know that that's real. And what hit me, and what they were kind of alluding to, was the fact that a culture's game of strategy is how they make decisions. In the West, What is the game of strategy there?
Chess.
Chess. Everything is chess, right? The chess move, the checkmate. When we got to it's checkmate. It's not so in Asia. What is their game?
Go.
Awesome. Go. Do you know any? You play Go?
I have played Go, yeah. Not as good as Grandpa.
Yeah, yeah.
The book I think about it.
Wow. It's a mahalo for sure. Exactly. Exactly. So their game is not about, so chess, if you think about it, is a lot about triangulation, right? I'm going to make sure that I've got one place to get my queen as close to the king and make sure she's covered and no one else can get her. I'm good. So it's like getting everybody on one target, right? It's the king. That's all this is about. If I got to wipe out everybody else to get to him, then fine. But really, it's about getting the king, which is why you can technically win in 3 moves, right? The fool's check. You can do that. Well, in Go, and I studied it because, and we'll learn a little bit more about that. But when I talked to my wife, she saw me studying Go because of this. I was studying Konane, and when I explained it to her, I said, "Okay, think about it as being the first to a theater, a movie theater, and you want to reserve seats for your family. So you start plunking things down on chairs to couple the seats for you, and somebody else comes in and starts doing the same thing. And so now whoever knows where to put these can actually, at the end, whoever has the most seats wins. Basic, what Go is about. There are some other tricky stuff that makes it really interesting, and I enjoyed learning how to play Go. And anyways, but that's the problem. The United States was playing chess, right? Operation linebacker, the holders go in and attack, whereas the North Vietnamese were playing Go. You're gonna go here, then I'm gonna come around this way. I'm just gonna hold all this territory. So yeah, so then it got me thinking, okay, well, what was our game of strategy? The only game that really comes up is Konane. So when we thought about it at first, I thought, well, Konane, really? And so I thought, okay, anyone play Konane? You played before. Okay, excellent. We can speed this up then. So what do we think we know about Konane?
It's a game of resources.
Awesome. Okay, well, you delve a lot deeper. Okay. How do you say that it's a game of resources?
You're wanting to make moves that set you up for more moves in the future.
Awesome. Okay, you're already here. All right. So let's work our way through that then. Excellent. So what we have here is basically excellent. Mahalo for sharing that. So this is one of the first. This comes from the officers of Captain Cook. The first thing written about Konane. One of their games resembles our game of drafts. Drafts is British for checkers. Because of that, the game has since been relegated to a children's game. Okay, that we only play at Makahiki generally. You only see it at Makahiki. It comes out with the ulumaika and the ihe if you have a banana stump. Okay, but it's pretty much, it's not taken seriously because anybody hear of a champion Konane player? No, because doesn't have the status of chess, right? Chess champions are respected. Wow, this guy can play chess. You can go to the mall on, I think it was Wednesday before, right? And they have all the tables out, the chess. So you can play with guys who are actually ranked and rated for their play. We don't have that with Konane because it's kind of a children's game. So, but if we were to continue reading, you would see this. But from the number of squares, it seems much more intricate. Okay, they didn't pay too much more attention to that. But this is kind of where people stop here. They don't go on to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe it's not checkers. They just said it's intricate, but how can these people really be playing something more intricate than what we play? And it just kind of gets dismissed. So, but this is our first sign that perhaps it's not just this. All it would have taken is for us to just keep reading, right? This is actually the second part of that sentence. So what do we think it is really? So I guess what point here is because we had that thing that it's checkers, all information we've taken since then is with that lens, and so it has always, and it appears that over time, it got linked with Chinese checkers, and so a lot of what we play today probably comes from Chinese checkers. Okay, so yeah, so let's try and take off that lens because certain things didn't add up as we were starting to research. One was when I went to Hilo for a different reason. We were going to occupy a space that had been occupied by a kupuna meeting before us. So we were waiting patiently, and we wanted to learn and get to meet the kupuna from Hilo. And not all of them were from Hilo. And what was interesting was they had the Konane boards up, and they were all playing. I thought, oh, okay, this is cool. And we realized that they were really playing. They were pretty intense in their games, and we found that fascinating to see all these moves. And not only that, they said, oh, you got to play with that kupuna. She plays Molokai rules. I said, oh, so different islands have different rules. And so I went to go watch her play, and in her style of play. So everyone know how to play Konane today? The version we're talking about. Basically, it's just like a checkerboard, except that we put pits. So they're really not squares. They're rows and columns of pits. They can go anywhere between 8 to 13 in any direction. Actually, the one that these guys saw, they said was 17, had 17 rows and I think 12 columns. So it was a big game. And this is why they're saying, wait a minute, this is way bigger than a checkerboard. And apparently some of the moves they were doing, they said they would move into the space next to it. That's a red flag because today we have to jump, okay? So they're saying it moved right into the next one. So all these little things, like I said, they're not adding up. Watch the kupuna play, and this one kupuna was doing that. She would just move into the space. That's how she would take the other player's piece. So now, once you do that, it's no longer checkers. It's closer to chess, okay? And they said she was known for beating opponents with maybe one or two pieces. She was that good. So I thought, okay, that's definitely not the game I'm playing. And then the kupuna also told us that Kamehameha did win with only one move. Well, in the current way we set it up, that's impossible, right? If anybody who does, we set up every other piece, black, white, and everyone, and there's no way that you can just take one off and you win, all right? So here's all our clues. Something's wrong. So what is it? The board, sometimes it's called a papamu, and sometimes it's called a papakonane. Well, that was kind of a mystery too. So there's a group of us that like, okay, what does this mean and why are there two names? So usually it's made out of either stone, or it could be, there are wooden ones that Bishop Museum has. They also have some stone ones. And then later on, Emery mentions that one of his informants told him that they could actually use a moina hala, so a mat. And that's because it made little squares. But just so you know, in order to play Konane, you'll have to turn it to a diamond shape because that's the only way you're going to get those columns and rows. Okay, so also we find them in various places. Emery says that it was very common in where houses were. So it's like everybody had one. And also close to the ocean. Now in Kona, they find those like right there on the beach. And some of them so close to the beach that today they've fallen into the water. Okay, so yeah, that was kind of curious to us too. Well, why would it be so close to the beach? Well, probably because the people in Kona didn't live on the beach. It was too hot. They lived up Mauka. They only came down to fish and they'd stay a certain amount of time and they'd go back up. Okay, so and it could be days. So some were saying, some of archaeologists were saying perhaps they were using it as a calendar or an alemanaka to keep track of what day. But you got the moon. Back then they could tell what day it was by the moon, but we're not sure. They could have been using it as a calendar. Okay. Now the name Papamu literally means the silent board. And I guess it is pretty much a quiet game unless you're starting to take jabs at each other, which is quite common during these games. But Sir Peter Terangi Hiroa Buck from Bishop Museum believes that it was from the word move. You move, your move. So when someone moved, they'd say move. That may be so of certain games, but probably not Konane. Far be it for me to contradict Sir Peter Buck, but uh, I think the real reason why it was called a Papa Mu and not so much a Papa Konane is because there were other games that were played on the same board. We have the names of other games. We don't have the rules. So unless somebody wants to make up rules to these games, some of these like Punipeke and Punipeki, that's N for noun. That should be over. Sorry, I just saw that. So Punipeke, Punipeki, probably the same game, mispronunciation. There's pahiuhiu, pushing a stone with a sharp stick. So not only do we have a board, today we use ili, little pebbles, okay? Black and white. Now, my coworker and mentor, Francis Ching, was one of the early archaeologists that did the Keikioew airport area. He found a burial cave, an Ali'i burial cave. In it, there was a papamu. And he found the ili. He said the ili, each one was shaped like a little ulumaika. They were carved, right? It makes sense. And Ali'i is not just going to go grab rocks to go play. He had whoever he or she was, had a nicely carved set. The black basalt looked like ulumaika. He said, but the white ones were made of coral. And he said they were in the shape of, they had divots in it. They're square. They had divots in it so you could hold it. But he said they resembled Hall's cough drops. That was the shape. And he said the middles were kind of brown, because obviously from oil, from handling them. But that's what he recalls. So now there's another game where the ili are not called ili, they're called hi'u. And they're like ulumaika, but they come to a sharp edge. Those would be placed on the board, and you would use a stick to flip it over your opponent. So again, these are all games. We don't have the rules to them. We just have descriptions of how they were played. So that could be why it was called a papamu, because it wasn't only for Konane. So move on from that. Next, Deshe never called it a papamu. Anyone familiar with Deshe? Keikioew. Right, mahalo. Right. Kamehameha's Warrior, Keikioew. It's a book written by Reverend Stephen L. Deshe. Excellent, excellent book. I think it might be required reading at some point. But Deshe basically was writing in the early 1900s. He was a reverend. He was writing articles because he felt the Hawaiians were beginning to forget their history. And so he wrote articles to try and get us back to being proud of who we were as Hawaiians. And he wrote about Kamehameha and this famous warrior, Keikioew. Beyond the scope of this discussion, but yeah, we could go on for weeks talking about this. Excellent book. And what I like about Deshe is because he has that perspective, he believes that we, the people he was writing to, we lost our foundation. So he explains everything really well. Whereas if you're to go back to some of my other favorites like Kamakau or even John Papa Ii, these guys are writing at a time when we still have our kingdom, we still have our culture, everything's in place. So they don't necessarily explain stuff, right? And to us, a lot of times, wait, where'd that come from? Or what does he mean by that? So Deshe, very refreshing, especially if you're starting into Hawaiian history. He's very good. And he goes into that. He always calls it a papa konane, but he uses it differently. There may be an actual papa konane there, or there might not be, because he uses it to mean a mindset. Okay, so I know we've heard of Kaiana before, yeah. I'm going to be careful because I know this can really go off in one direction. But in this book, Kaiana is, they all move to Maui preparing to attack Oahu. They move to Lahaina, and Kaiana goes, and he says, okay, this is what we're going to do. I fought on Oahu twice. I know this place. And he uses a layout, and none of the ali'i with Kamehameha will pay attention. And they won't agree to anything he says. And he makes the comment, my Papa Konane helped us to conquer the whole Big Island. How come all of a sudden it's not worth anything here? And they would refuse to answer him. And so he walks off and he goes to Molokai, and we know where that leads off, right? Anyway, so, but there we have it. He says, my Papa Konane. He wasn't really referring to the board. It was his battle plans that he had laid out, okay? We also find in the Hawaiian newspapers more articles about, believe it or not, Hawaiians used to argue in the old days. They didn't always agree. And so in the newspapers, we would fight with each other, and not even from the same paper. We'd challenge someone to answer, and they'd answer in another paper. So you'd have to buy both to get the whole. And a lot of times, they'll make things like, they'll say things like, oh, literally. So that's how the ili rolls on your Papa Konane, right? Also, that's how you do things. That's how you think. So it was kind of a slam, actually, when they did that. So yeah, definitely, we can confirm it's used more as a mindset. That's not to say that there's no relation to the actual board. And definitely, in the book, Keikioew by Deshe, it's used a lot to mean the battle plans of an ali'i. And then even in the newspapers, you'll find during the Kingdom era, you'll hear them say, oh, oia ka Papa Konane o na o ke aha upuni. Oh, so that's what the government, hale ali'i, and, okay, translating to English. Basically, the government assembly, which included the House of Nobles and the House of Representatives. So they're saying, so that's how that's what they're planning to do. This is Pela ka Papa Konane, right? That's what they're planning. Anyway, any questions, just stop me now, because I'm actually just hitting all these tips of icebergs. We can go deep into any one of these. That I'm trying not to, but if you want to, we can. Okay, so why did we stop? Well, a lot of our Christian, I don't want to blame them directly, but they didn't care for things, the idle mind, right? We don't like that. It was considered idle time. They didn't see any value in it, and probably because they didn't see how important it was to our culture. Okay. Also, there was a wee bit of gambling involved. Actually, a lot. So yeah, Hawaiians definitely gambled. Surprise, surprise. And we gambled big. Okay. And so yeah, that could be another reason why they're cutting that out. And then that pahiuhiu I was talking about with the iri that came to kind of sharp points. They said that some forms of sorcery actually use the board and those pebbles. And so obviously that's a tool of the devil, and you don't use that. Okay? So those are three quick reasons why. So recently I've been working with a committee to try to reinvigorate the play of Konane. This man here has been involved for many years now. His name is John Kaopua, and he has definitely tried to push it to another level. So this is one of the sayings he says all the time, Konane is easy to play but difficult to master. So even the game we play today, we'll find there's a lot of value to it. And it is simple. The rules there's like only there's like 3 or 4 rules basically, but to actually be good at it is a whole nother thing. So his style of play is actually determined what we're calling the current tournament rules. And there are tournaments going on now, most of them amongst the lower elementary, well, not lower, elementary, and then they're trying to get it higher. Olaka'i on the other islands have had Konane tournaments. Okay, so this is the rules. To begin play, basically, you'd get one of you would get a white and a black, put it behind, and your partner will choose whatever color they're going to be. Then you put it back, and I'll show you how it's set up. But basically, the center is called the pico. And so normally, and tournament rules, there's 4 in the middle, 2 white, 2 black. If you're black, you go first. You'll take a black piece from the middle. And then the opponent will have to take a white piece that's adjacent to that one. So there's 4 that's right next to it. So they take one of those, and now the game begins. And basically, every move, you must jump one of your opponent's pieces and take it. You may jump more than once, but only in one direction. You cannot zigzag. And because of how it's set up, there's no way you can do a diagonal, because those will be your colored pieces, right? So it's only vertically and horizontally. It can be more than once, but there has to be an empty space at the end. You cannot land into a space where you have another piece, okay? And that's pretty much it. What is the object of Konane? The object of Konane is to be the last one to move. Whoever cannot move, cannot jump, you lose, okay? It doesn't matter how many pieces you took. We don't even count how many pieces you've taken off the board, okay? It's whoever has the last move. And this is interesting. So now, again, Go is about taking spaces. Chess is about triangulation and covering. Konane is about having options. Okay, that's the bottom line, that I have more options than you. And the gameplay is really, it comes to people who understand it. And it's about making sure that I have more options than you, just by pattern recognition and looking, and I can see certain things are going to happen. And I make sure that when I make a move, I'm not giving you another one, right? So there's that kind of play where you want to make sure I have one extra move that you don't. And that's why till today that you might hear people say, oh, that's his or her Konane move. And that was the last move that nobody knew they had. Okay, so it's kind of, we're trying to get more words from Konane into the common vernacular, but right now I think that's the only one we're hearing, which is, oh, that's their Konane move. There was one secret move they had that nobody knew about. Okay, so yeah, that's here's some of the moves, and I'll pull a board up so that you can see. Normally I bring boards, but yeah, I think this time we're just gonna go into it. So it's set up like this, and the current tournament is 6x6. So what's interesting is if you got 6x6, what you're dealing with is more immediate, because it's small. The bigger boards, you can actually set up long-term traps and strategies. But because the current tournament 6x6 is more tactics than strategy. Okay, so, but anyway, yeah, they're set up every other one like that. And so we have different moves. We have, okay, I've got about 5 different sources from different eras contradicting. But this is pretty much what we're saying, what we believe it is. An ai is when you jump over your opponent. Okay, that's called an ai. When you take the opponent's piece off, that's called a holo. How that's easy to remember is Hawaiian warfare, especially if you have 2 lua fighters. One gets caught in the ai lua, right? I got you. They said that if the other person is a lua fighter, then you're obligated to give them the chance to yield. And if that person does yield, then they will holo off the battlefield. Okay, so that's how you remember that. Put them in, this is a I got you, and then you're allowed to run, holo. That goes along with Hawaiian, the Hawaiian way of doing things. We don't want to really talk about ho'omake, right? It's not about that. And, and really, a lot of battles were not about mass destruction. Okay, a lot of times it was the way it's set up. It was just supposed to be the 2 champions, right? And we're looking for the sign from Ku that he favors one side. And hopefully, and that can be done many ways, right? So usually if you got the two fighting, the one who dies is you ever heard of that term? The lehua? Yeah, I've heard it. Okay, I heard somebody say the lehua. At that point, the lehua's body, because there are levels to leading up to this point, right? The very first level would have been, and somebody speed me up if I'm taking too long, but real quick, one of the first levels that war is going to happen is that the chiefs will start planting kalo and making fish ponds. Okay, so on Oahu, we had the children of Kalani Manuia, the sons Ku and Kaihikapu and Ha'o. And basically, the second son, the oldest son became the mo'i. The second son started making a lot of lo'i and fish ponds, and the first son got offended. I never understood that until later on and studied that as a challenge because Ku is our akua. He's not only the akua of war, he's the akua of resources. And so I'm showing that I'm good with resources, possibly better than you. And so now the Ali'i Nui will start to do the same thing. And this is going to come in useful later. Kalo, fish ponds, why? Because the next step, if they're equal and Ku doesn't stop and say, okay, no, this one's better, and choose, then the next layer is to build a heiau, resource management, right? Manpower, actual stones, and you're pulling people away from their fish ponds, from their farms. You're gonna have to feed people, and thus the lo'i and the fish ponds you've already prepared. And even further, that'll become even more important later. So now both build a heiau. If the heiau are perfect and they're equal, then you move to the next layer. But it could stop right there, as in the case of Kauai High, the heiau over there. That is, anyone? Pu'ukohola, right. Okay, Maikai. What was so interesting about Pu'ukohola? There was no competitive, there was not another heiau. Kamehameha won at that point. Okay, Keikioew didn't have it. He didn't even know Kamehameha was building one. So in Kamehameha timed it. He built it and finished it right before Makahiki. You can't build these during Makahiki. So Keikioew knew he lost right there. Ku has already decided, which is why he kind of took on that attitude of, I'm done, right? Aye.
So if you built the hill and won, there was no war.
Yeah, there wasn't supposed to be a battle. What there was Kamehameha's men gathering sacrifices for the heiau, right? That's what they were doing. They're going to get Keikioew and whoever was with them, put them on the altar. So it wasn't actual a war for land or anything. It was over. Keikioew knew it, and that's why he kind of took drastic actions before he got there to try and give bad luck to Kamehameha afterwards. But yeah, so in that case, there was only one heiau, game over. But if there are two heiau and they're equal, now when you're building these heiau, it's not just the rock wall. We believe that if we do a perfect job, there might not be any bloodshed, right? You'd be saving a lot of lives. This is why hundreds of years later, these structures are still standing, because they put that much effort into this, that we need to make it really good so that it's over. Now, if you've got two that are equal, then the next step is to prepare armies, prepare your warriors for battle. Again, another feat of resource management. Ku is about resources. So, case in point, one unit, say the Malana, could have 400 warriors. Usually it takes 2 to 3 years to train. You're gonna have to feed 400 men. Anyone wear a malo before? Did you ever wear it again? Right after. Probably, yes, you'd want to wash it. But back then we didn't have washing machines, did we? So, do you wear the same malo twice? Heck no. Yeah, I know you don't do that. 400 times 365 times 3. Yeah, just do the math. You know how long it takes to make a malo? A long time. So these are guys who are building up resources. So, and I'm just talking about putting models on them. That's all. I'm not talking about feeding them, not talking about bringing in the instructors to teach them and train them. And in the case of the Alapa, they all had to have ahu'ula and mahi'ole. So huge, huge. Now, let me blow your mind even more. Each warrior had what was called a mamakakawa, right? The mamakakawa were actually literally weapons bearers, right? Until today, so my cousin is in the Air National Guard. He said for every F-22 that's in the air, there's at least 10 of them on the ground supporting it. One is counting how many missiles he has. The other one is keeping track of his fuel. So all of these guys are supporting that guy up there so he can just do his job. The Mamakakawa were the ones feeding the warriors while they're fighting on the battlefield. So they got to be good at dodging because the Ihe don't stop for them either. They could feed them, give them weapons, whatever it is. And usually there are at least 2 per warrior. So you got 400. You could have 800 mamakakawa for just that unit of 400. Okay? Again, massive, massive abilities for resource management. Yeah. We only like to think about the guys throwing spears at fighting, but we don't think about the preparation that was involved. So when you have 2 huge armies showing up on a battlefield, that's impressive, right? That's amazing. If Ku is the god of resources, including human resources, I don't think he really wants to see one side get wiped out. Yeah, because that's a human. That's mass. Each man is, or each warrior, is a library. It's like burning down a library, right? So this is why there's more. It's not just go out, hack, slash, and kill. That's not the attitude. But if we have to fight and defend, we do. So now you got the lehua. He's the first one down. What you want to do is, if your man killed their champion, he's supposed to bring the body back to the heiau you made, and we'll offer him there. Well, not raw. They're not kicking, screaming. They're not bleeding. Literally, we put them in an imu. We prepare them like a pig, and then they're placed on the altar. Before they're placed there, we put a hook with a palawa tip in the mouth, and then put him face down on the altar. Okay. So you take the lehua. You want to do that. The other side could easily just decide, well, we didn't get all dressed up for nothing, and try and prevent you from doing that. And so now the body becomes kind of a football. It's a football game to get that body. You're trying to get it to your heiau. They're trying to get the body and hide it so you can't. Because once they do that, it's over. Ku has to accept their offering. But if we're not going to let that happen, well, then there are other things. And so, there are a whole bunch of other things involved. Also, both sides have hau. Right? If you can knock down the other guy's hau, then that means you win, you took the field. So there are many ways you could win. If the Ali'inui dies somehow, that's an obvious sign that Ku has chosen the other side. So there's no more bloodshed, it's over. Right? And in many cases, Kahekili defeated Kalani Opu'u at least 3 times, never executed him in any of those times. So really, it's not always about killing your opponent. All right, so any questions so far? Okay, because I can really go off. You got it.
So you're talking about win states, right? So win state number 1.
Yes.
Well, all those other things. Raise more resources. Win state number 1. Win state 2. Build a heiau before the other one.
Yes.
Win state 3. Kill their champion. Win state 4. Take champion back to heiau. Win state 5. Knock over some structure. Win state 6. Kill a lead.
Yeah.
I mean, how many win states are there? And how do you what is one win state above another one?
Well, definitely, if the Ali'inui dies, game over, automatic.
So that's like
Okay.
the ultimate win state. No matter what else happened, I can knock over something. But if I kill the other one.
Yeah, then there's no point because we're really fighting for your Ali'inui, and if he dies, then what are you fighting for? It's done. So in the case of Kivala'o, Battle of Moku Ohai, Kamehameha, Kivala'o dies early, and the battle's over. Right? They've had skirmishes, and understand not every fight is the same because we have raids. We do have raids. Just ask Kuali'i's family. They raided. Well, Big Island didn't really like Kuali'i, put it that way. He was known for raiding the Big Island, and Keikioew was quite irritated with it. But he didn't go to take territory. He was keeping his men sharp. Those are just raids. We also have skirmishes But then once you have a formal war, what you're talking about, then what you're mentioning, then you've got both sides coming. And one of those win stakes you're talking about is just presenting the army, right? Because if yours is definitely far more prepared than the other, then that's over. But
Who decides that? Is it just obvious?
yeah, I have no example. I'm still looking for them. I have no example where one went and said, all right, it's over. But there are times when you have, like, say, who they call the Oahu Eight, right? They met Kahekili on the shore and held him off for a long time. But then at some point, they're like, is Kahahana coming or what? And they just, okay, we're out of here. And they withdrew. And these are some bad dudes with their pololu. I love Brooke Parker, he's my cousin. I love his paintings. I would buy them if I could afford them. But his 8, they all had Leo Manoa. Actually, they were Pololu fighters. And that's kind of the weapon of heroes, from what we can tell. The Papakaua, which are the men who surround the Ali'i Nui, they all had these Pololu, and they were all an army unto themselves. That's why they were there. And as in the story of Kavelo on Kauai, his cousin Aikanaka was on the hill with his Papakaua. Every time one side would go weak, he'd call one of his champions and go down, go strengthen that side. And just his appearance would do it. But there were these awesome warriors with these pololu, and they would use them to pole vault. And they had, apparently the Oahu 8 not only fought, they had a silent language. They were communicating as they were fighting. And the leader Pupuka would give a cue, and at the same moment, they'd all flip their pololus back and pole vault away and take off. Okay, so yeah, anyways, okay, so moving on. The ai, the holo. Ka holo means you're eating more than one at a time in one direction. So we call that a ka holo, not to be confused with a holo. A ku'i is a strike back in the opposite direction. So if I eat this one and land here, a ku'i means my opponent eats me in the opposite direction. So that's what a ku'i is. And that's a very key part of the game. Once you get into strategy, ku'is are very important. And then a hele is a word for your move. O kau hele keia, it's your turn. Okay, so that's why I don't think, earlier I said Buck's explanation of papa mu or move, telling someone to move. We never called it a move, we called it a hele. Yeah, so kau hele keia, it's your turn. Okay, all right. I think right now, maybe we're gonna take a 5-minute break, stand up, and then I'll set up the next section. And again, any questions, just stop me.
Mind blown.
Yeah, hopefully, because there's a lot out there and I don't know everything. Yeah, it's good to see you.
I'm happy to take this in again. Repetition is the way I learn.
Me too. Yeah. So I think I have some new stuff to show you guys for who was here last time. I think on the last slide, the latest research that we had since we met. I'll introduce that.
About the Ulumaipa pieces and stuff, and that refreshed my. I'm gonna make for my talent.
Awesome.
That's my goal, is to make a board.
I would love to see that. I would love, in my lifetime, I'd love to see that.
We'll gather, start shaping, and definitely. I remember from the last time, I want to make it, and then I just kind of.
Because right now it's kind of legendary for me. It's wow, they had these. But to actually see one of you, yeah. And I think that would elevate to what the game is, right? Instead of, and I don't mind using the ili, the little pebbles and stuff, but yeah, that would definitely elevate this one.
Sometimes they offer free shots, yeah.
I don't see why not. I don't see why not. That makes sense.
See, that's an easy out. I would make all of this.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I would love to see that.
I'm gonna work on that.
Yeah, well, let me know.
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to. left it.
Just wondering how much longer is the second part?
Just look. Oh, it's real short. It's real short. I can cut it.
No, don't cut.
How much time is there?
Yeah, so I think maybe on a schedule we might start the next part like 11:35.
Okay.
We got like to 11, like 20 minutes.
20 minutes? Oh, that's plenty.
Oh, okay.
Plenty,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no rush.
Yeah, no, it's not half. This is just so I can set up the other part.
Okay.
It's not a PowerPoint. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, mahalo. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
That's what they look like. It used to be like first and over, so it was the day of the flow. Right. That's why it
Okay.
Pay later.
So I'm sure you guys, when I was teaching at Kamakau, that's how we met, we're at Kamakau School. And one semester we were doing Hawaiian history, and we actually did a sham battle. And we had the tennis balls on the ihe. And I'll tell you what, I learned the most because I studied it, right? But to be on the field holding an ihe and have ihe flying at you, that's a whole nother. And all of a sudden, my senses heightened. Like, whoa! It's like I could see really. I could see all the way around. I noticed when things. I didn't realize how easy it was to break the ihe in mid-flight because I caught one and I was blocking, and they were breaking. So I better stop that. You still need those. But yeah, they broke easy, and I just remembered all my senses heightened and like, oh man, I don't know how long you can stay like that. But yeah, that was really something. Because there's something about being in the footsteps, right, of your kupuna. That's the only way. So that's partially why we're trying to get people to play Konane. If this is what our kupuna was playing, there had to be some value to it, right? And so
I never thought about it as war strategy.
yeah. As bring that with last slide. Yeah. But it's exciting. We're really getting some traction and trying to get schools to participate, and we're trying to do stuff like this, which is scenarios. So I'll show a couple scenarios.
We'll start the next part.
Okay. Hi, mahalo. Okay, so I wanted to show you kind of what a scenario would look like and how we're teaching kids some of the principles that you can learn from the Papa Konane. In this case, it's black's move. Okay, so let's have a look here. How many ai do we see if it's black's move? How many chances to jump? Can you guys see? Yeah. 1, 2. For black, yeah. Black playing. So, oh, I see what you say. Okay, yes. That's right. There's a kaholo here. So you've got an ai and you've got a kaholo, may kai, and then you got an ai here. So this is actually what we call a kui, this lineup right here. Because if this person does an ai, then that will set up the kui. Okay, so when we talk about recognition, pattern recognition, this is one of the early patterns we recognize on a board. We know that this is we call this a kui, white favored, because when this is all over, this is gone, there'll be a white ili there, okay? And how that helps us is if I see this, and I know when it plays out, there's just gonna be this, that helps me to set up the next one, okay? So when I look at the board, I can already see there's that one's gonna go this way. Okay, so pattern recognition is one of the things we try to teach kids. So if you're black, remember, how do we win? Last move. Okay. So what is black's best move? We know there are 3 spaces black can move to, right? We determined that.
One eye.
Okay.
Between the 2 white.
There. Okay. Excellent. Let's do that. Yeah, that's your holo, right? White is off. Okay, so now white's turn. Automatically, black has won. Okay, excellent move. Why? And why do we teach this to kids? Because normally they're going to see the kaholo, they're just going to take it. What would have happened if you kaholo here? White would win. Okay, so just because it's given to you, that doesn't mean you have to take it. So we talk about this in the story of Ma'ili Kukahi. Okay, so we can actually apply this to history. Ma'ili Kukahi, everybody familiar with him? He's a one of our greatest ali'i from Oahu. Okay, during his time, I like to call it Oahu's first golden era. Right, he did amazing stuff, and we don't have the time to tell his story, but I can tell you this: he was on the bench. He was not ali'i nui, but he was one of those who was qualified. He was a young man. He had been trained, and the council who ruled Oahu said, "Okay, we got a problem. This guy from Nanakuli named Haka is now going up the west coast, conquering the villages and making his armies bigger and bigger." Okay, which is Aha is supposed to prevent that, the council, but apparently Haka wasn't listening, and so he was coming around Lihu'e, which everybody knows Lihu'e was on Oahu, right? Comes around to Waialua. By then, they turn to Ma'ili Kukahi and says, "You're up. All the rest of us in the council will put our armies under you. Smash this guy." Ma'ili Kukahi goes, "Okay." Gets everybody arrayed. The night before the battle, the big battle, everyone's going, "Okay, is Ma'ili Kukahi ready? Can he do it?" The night before the battle, he sends assassins, and he assassinates Haka. Okay. Well, battle over. The Inui's dead. But the Aha was kind of, "Well, we're kind of hoping to see your abilities," right? They're kind of disappointed, and it still didn't quite, okay, is this the right guy or not? Because we didn't see his prowess on the battlefield. Ma'ili Kukahi was smart. Just because I can doesn't mean I have to. Because what is the ultimate goal? In this case, it's to unite Oahu. If I go in and I wipe out all the young men from the west coast of Oahu, how are their families going to support us? By him only taking the one, right? By taking Haka, the people on the west coast realized he did that for them, and they became very loyal. Okay, game over. He won. All right. Just to tell you what else happens with that, the Aha doesn't trust him yet, so they make him Mo'i Ho'oponopono, not Mo'i. Mo'i Ho'oponopono is kind of like a CEO. Yeah, you do what we tell you to do. This goes on for 9 years. He's so good at execution and policy that the Maka'ainana, the Kahuna, everybody demand the Aha make him Mo'i. He's that good. Okay, so again, far beyond what today is about, but yeah, that was Ma'ili Kukahi. Okay, here's another one. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 moves for black. Yep, black move. And what's funny is with each one of these, if the black makes the wrong move, he loses right there. Right? Okay, one jump to the left. Is that what we're doing? Okay. I like that move. Okay, holo. White has no, okay. What I like about this is, and it does happen, and far be it from me to teach martial arts in this group, but when my father was teaching me boxing, we learned something called body mechanics, right? I shoot you to the ribs, you have no choice. You're going to do this. Especially if I catch you when you're inhaling and your ribs has spread wide open. A shot to the rib is going to, so by hitting you here, I know where your head's going to be. It's going to be here. I'm not going to punch there. And so basically, you set up the move so that the person has no choice. The body has to react. A jab is going to bring up the hands. You hit the rib, right? So I'm controlling you. Bang, bang, and then the last one, because you've already been, I watered your nose with the first one. You're protecting yourself. You get here, You automatically have to cover that. Your head is open. Finish. Boom. This is what's happening here, right? White has no choice. This is the only option. And he knows he's going to lose. He has to do it. So, and good move, you guys. Excellent. So let's play it out just so you get the satisfaction. And then there's your kaholo. Excellent. Okay.
That one on the first move. You could have done that.
But then you would have lost. How would you?
So
Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, let's do that again. Okay. Let's set up.
You still have the last.
Well, this is, and what's good about battle simulations is they can be redone over and over. So excellent. So you're saying bottom black goes up to kaholo. Game over. With one move. Excellent. Okay. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people thinking and going, okay, we can try this. What about this? Excellent. Okay. So now, let's go back to, I think we covered Maili Kukahi. Oh, Lonoi Kamakahiki. That's a famous story about Konane playing. The funny thing is, Lonoi Kamakahiki was not a Konane player, and it shows in the game. He wasn't very good at it. He was actually really good at something called ho'opapa, which is kind of a verbal combat game, which, very few should get involved with if you don't know what you're doing. But he was good at ho'opapa. So in the famous scenario is he's sitting there with his wife playing Konane, and the other elite around him watching, and somebody from someplace else decides to make trouble and says, hey, your lover from Kona says to say hi, right? In a chant now. So it's nice. He's doing this chant as they're playing. And so, Keikioew tries to overtalk him by trash talking. And she starts talking loud. She goes, he ai ke ia, he holo ke la, moikava. In other words, moikava means this. You're out there, you got no moves. So basically, what we did here, this is actually a kaholo. But ai ke ia, you take out this he holo ke la, and then I left you out here moikava. So she's talking loud like that. And at some point, now the earliest part, the earliest stories, all he does is grab the ili and whip it at her and walk away. And he leaves, like, there in Kona, he leaves to Kauai. So he was pretty angry. In later stories, it gets worse, as things build up. By the time we get to, so that's the first version. The next version you find in the newspaper, he grabs a pauku la'au. There's a log someplace, I don't know where, and he beats her with it. And then in the last version with Kamakau, he actually takes the stone Papa Konane and kills her with it. Okay, so it actually got worse over time. But I always wonder why you got so angry. Why were you so mad? Was it because of that, or was it because she beat you 4 times in a row? Now this is interesting because, so now we're to the point where we've done some research since we last met. So we got something for you guys who heard me before, something new. In the stories, they sit down, and what's interesting is they go through the process of actually saying, "Awa kau na ili a pa'akapapa." They placed all the ili on the board until it was set. Why would you do that? Isn't that assumed that that's what you're going to do if you're going to play Konane? You're going to place the ili on the board. And if they're the same thing every time, what's the point? That led us to believe, that and a couple other things led us to believe that they weren't placing them in the same places that we are, that they're actually playing Go. They're starting to, I place one, no, you place one. We find another one by Fornander who actually gives the names of the placements, their plays. As a matter of fact, by the time you put your 7th one down, it has 12 names. Names like Kamo'oina Nea, Keikioew. There's all these chiefs. Kalani Moku is one of the plays. So we don't know the play, but we know that these stones have names just by how you place them, which tells us that it's not. And so the game we're playing, I think it has value, and that's what we're pushing now. It's probably not what they were playing before. It looks like, because they said they would do the ho'onoho noho first, and even Deshe breaks it up. He says, there's ho'onoho noho, ho'one'e ne'e. There's a placement and the movement. So they'll do the placement first. Once that's done, then by looking at the board, they would then make their bets. Their pili vai vai. There's hako pili. What do you bet? What are you betting? And this could, depending on what the situation is, if it was potential mates, then they would bet something else, right? Like, oh, I only have a body. I only have a body to gamble. They did that, yeah. But they would do the ho'onoho noho, the ho'opili, and then they would do a section called uhau. Uhau or hauna means to attack. Okay, so you don't actually do that in Go. Once you place that down, you can't take off a player's piece, but it's only because you've surrounded it. Okay, but you're not actually moving your pieces. That doesn't happen in Go. So apparently the first part of our game was Go, and then from there, it turned into a chess game. Okay, so it's far more complex than we ever thought that this could be. So yeah, so that's for those of you who were here last time, that's what we found, that in several places where they said, okay, and not only that, there is this one line that says, well, basically, they took all the pieces and all that was left were these stones. And we're kind of thinking, again, we're still in the research phase right now, and I'm not sure how much more we're going to find, but what it appears to be is that we could tailor our Papa Konane to fit the geography. So we could actually place markers on here to block, to make it look like a valley or whatever it was. So now we could tailor this Papa and play it so that it fit that geography. Okay, that's what it's alluding to. The fact that these things are all that's left on the board are these stones that they don't move. Okay, so hi.
So in that way, not only they're actually changing the dynamic of the board because the pieces can't jump that obstacle.
That's
they have
right.
to work around it.
Exactly. So again, this is where we're at our research. With our research, let's see. Is there any? I think that's what you mentioned earlier, that talking about battlefield, not realizing that it could be a battlefield simulation, right? Well, even more than that, we can actually now, that's why I said remind me later, because it appears that we actually tailored it to fit certain battlefields. Okay.
Has
I think
anybody actually developed rules for the old game, like just guessed what it was, where you place pieces down and then the phase 2 is you're jumping?
no, we're the only ones researching it right now, and I know we haven't done it yet. We're trying to find other people to get involved because we have other moves. Like if you have a whole bunch across here, those are all stuck. Yeah, nobody can jump anyone. So the moment one jumps away from the line, that opens up your next move. And so, I don't want to go through the trope, but so if I was here and I jump here, now my next move is here, my next move is here. And so today, because of a lack of a better word, John is calling that the choo-choo train. Because it just keeps going that way. And he's like, I need a name. You guys, I need a name for this move. And then if you move your piece in between, you jump, you're now safe in between those. And so he's calling that the sandwich, right? Because you're in there, you're safe, and you might have an opportunity, but they can't get to you. I doubt our ancestors called it a sandwich or kanawika. So, we're going to try and pull together a board of people who's willing to work with us and say, hey, look. And even if we have to make up a name for now, and we just say, we made up this name for now. When we find the real name, we'll swap it, right? But just so we don't want that to stop us, right? We need to keep moving forward. But good question. We're only just finding out about this new version or other version of the game, and we feel that the game that we're playing now was probably the checkers to that chess game. So this is the preparation for playing that one. So, and in that one, it appears that they just moved into the next space to take that opponent. Anyway, I think that's about it. All I have.
Any relatives of this in Polynesia, like other games that are similar to this, or
That is a really good question. I haven't found any.
inspiration, or like,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we don't even know how far back this goes. I mean, yeah, we're not. I think Lono Ikumakahiki is one of our oldest stories about Konane. And I'd love to find, I believe Ma'ili Kukahi did it. I believe Kuali'i all played this game. They said Kakuhi Heva, that was one of his preoccupations, was just staying up all night with this. And I can't believe that he would be doing that with a checker game. Right? So chances are there was more to it than that. So yeah. Hi.
So in a sense, it's like kinesthetic archaeology. So instead of a physical object, you have a concept. And by continually practicing the concept, you're able to discern and discover that which may have been before.
That is,
It's that way with, certainly that way with Lua. So I was in the first class once upon a time,
wow,
where you have so much information, and it's only through
that's right.
continual practice over time that every once in a while you have this
Yes.
aha moment. Pun
Exactly.
intended, aha.
Yeah.
You have this aha moment, and then you realize that you're not the first one to think of it. Your ancestor probably already did that 200 years ago, and you just discover.
Yeah. Definitely. I think we're
Kinesthetic archaeology.
okay. Mahalo for giving it a term so that I can give it, because we were talking about that earlier during the break, how basically sometimes you have to be in the footsteps of your kupuna to actually feel and experience what they did. Yeah. So, and that's in general for all things, right? That talking about who was Nainoa, that one of the times they're headed down to Rapa Nui, Hokulea was going down, and he always planned it a certain way, and his crew was like, why don't we try the traditional route? And he goes, well, I'm trained to do this. I trust my own navigating, and they finally got him to do it. When he took the Kupuna route, they found a current that they didn't know existed. They arrived there over a week ahead of time. Okay, so yeah, the Kupuna, they did what they did for a reason, and so we got to walk in that path to actually find out. We should do that first, and then maybe if you can improve later, right? I think that's the strength of hula. You got kahiko, show you know your foundation, your kahiko knowledge, and then if you got that, and you think you can, then fine, go ahead, right? So I think that's a really good. For me, hula has always served as that. Is let's get down the tradition, learn everything we can before we start moving forward. It's let's make up and do something else. Like they're not saying not to, right? Because how else would we progress if we didn't try to improve? But first, try to know what exists, and then But mahalo, excellent
Do they
manao.
know when they stop placing the pieces? Because if you can't put them on every single spot,
Right.
At some point, it's got to be an end, or do they put them on every, and then they take them off again? So,
All they said is kauna ili a pa'a kapapa. The pa'a is completely filled.
Take one off and then
yeah,
Yeah.
They put it all on.
yeah,
Right,
then you
right.
take-
Yeah, so you put them all on, and then we gamble, and then we go into the eating section when we start doing that. All right, mahalo again for having me. All right, mahalo.